You know, in the business world today, things are complex. They're constantly changing, and it can feel pretty overwhelming. So, how do the best organizations manage to not just survive, but actually thrive in all this chaos? Well, the answer lies in a completely different way of leading, one that's built from the ground up for adaptation. Let's dive in and see what that's all about. For the first time in history, a huge IBM study found that CEOs are more worried about technology than anything else. Yep, even more than the economy. And this quote really says it all. The fear isn't just about falling a little behind. It's about going out of business completely. Suddenly, the ability to adapt isn't just a nice-to-have skill, it's absolutely critical for survival. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll kick things off with what adaptive leadership actually is, and then get into its core strategy, which is all about responsiveness. After that, we'll look at the process for managing opportunities, how you organize for innovation, and some really common pitfalls you've got to avoid. And we'll wrap up with a few first steps you can take to get started. So let's get right to it. What exactly is adaptive leadership? It's really so much more than just a new buzzword or a set of processes. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. It's a whole new way of thinking that's designed specifically for this volatile, unpredictable world we're all living in. Okay, here's the official definition, but I want you to pay close attention to those verbs: energizing, empowering, and enabling. See, this isn't about top-down command and control, not at all. It's about creating the right kind of environment where your teams can move fast, learn all the time, and deliver real, tangible value to customers, even when it feels like the ground is shifting right under their feet. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Traditional management came from a time when things were, well, a lot more predictable. You could pretty much plan your way out of any uncertainty. The main goal was efficiency, just getting better and better at doing the same thing. But adaptive leadership completely flips that on its head. In a world you can't predict, learning and adapting are way more important than just being super efficient at doing the wrong thing. And that brings us to a really crucial choice you have to make. To be truly adaptive, you have to decide once and for all what your organization's #1 goal is. Think about two massively successful, but totally different companies, Walmart and Google. Walmart's entire world is built on efficiency. Their whole game is about driving down costs in a pretty stable, predictable retail environment. Google, on the other hand, they live in the super volatile world of tech. Their edge comes from being incredibly responsive, their ability to dream up and launch new products and features at a dizzying speed. And this right here is the heart of it. An organization simply can't have two #1 priorities. It's just not possible. You can totally go after both efficiency and responsiveness, but one of them has to be your main objective, your North Star. And the other one, that becomes a constraint you have to work within. For any truly adaptive organization, responsiveness has to be the objective, period. So if being responsive is the goal, how do we measure if we're actually succeeding? Well, we have to ditch that old iron triangle of scope, schedule, and cost. It's time for something new. This is the Agile Triangle, and it's a model that focuses on what really, truly matters. Let's break this down. Value isn't just about ticking boxes on a feature list. It's about making a product that actually delights your customers. And quality, it's not just about being bug-free today. It's about building a platform that's adaptable enough to handle whatever changes come tomorrow. And here's the biggest shift of all. Constraints, things like scope, schedule, and cost, they aren't the goal. They're just the boundaries your team works within to deliver all that amazing value and quality. Okay, so if the goal is responsiveness, the process itself has to change too. In a world that's moving this fast, companies don't really have predictable life cycles anymore, but opportunities do. And that means the single most important thing you can do is get really, really good at managing the flow of those opportunities, from the first spark of an idea all the way to making a real impact. So opportunities tend to move through these 5 distinct phases. It all starts with discovery and startup, where you're just testing out new ideas. Then comes scale, where you pour major resources into the ideas that prove to be winners. But, and this is just as important, you also have the mature and decline phases. Actively managing the end of an opportunity's life is what frees up the money and the talented people you need for that next wave of discovery. Now, to manage this kind of flow, you're going to need a different kind of organization. You can't just slap an innovation department onto a rigid, old-school hierarchy and hope for the best. It just won't work. Your organization's structure has to follow its strategy. Here are 2 really powerful ways to do that. The ambidextrous organization protects new ideas by creating a totally separate unit just for exploring new opportunities. It's shielded from all the day-to-day pressures of the main business. A dual operating system is a bit more integrated. You keep the traditional hierarchy for stability, but then you overlay this dynamic, volunteer-based network on top of it. It's kind of like having a fast-moving startup living inside the larger company. Of course, even if you have the perfect strategy and the right structure, the path to becoming truly agile is loaded with traps. So let's take a look at some of the most common pitfalls that can totally undermine the whole effort. I know this one might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's a huge, huge deal. Velocity, which is basically how much stuff a team gets done in a cycle, is a useful tool for calibration. But the moment it gets treated like a productivity metric, it becomes toxic. Teams start focusing on just looking busy instead of delivering actual value, and quality almost always goes out the window. A few other major traps to watch out for. Mismatched governance. That's when you try to apply rigid old-world planning to flexible new-world work. It's a disaster. Then you've got what's called feature folly, which is the massive amount of waste that comes from building things that your customers never, ever use. And finally, ignoring technical debt. Think of this like taking a bunch of shortcuts while building a house. Sure, it gets you a roof over your head faster today, but it makes every single renovation in the future slower, way more expensive, and much more likely to cause the whole thing to collapse. Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the what not to do. Now, let's get to the most important part. How do you actually start? Let's look at some really practical first steps you can take. The first step is to completely change how you think about plans. Instead of having one number that means everything, you split it up. You use forecasts, your best current guess, to coordinate with other teams. You use targets, those aspirational stretch goals, for motivation. And then you evaluate your team's performance holistically, looking at the real value and quality they delivered, not just whether they hit some arbitrary number. I want you to really let this number sink in. Over 50%. That's the estimated percentage of software features that are rarely or never even used. That's the incredible cost of feature folly. This tells us that the single biggest productivity gain you can find isn't about working faster, it's about stopping work that doesn't matter. It's about doing less, but making sure that what you do build delivers incredible value. So the crucial takeaway here is this. You've got to stop framing the debate as features versus quality. That is a false choice. The real conversation is all about balance. How do we balance delivering valuable new features for our customers today with making the right investments to reduce our cycle time so we can deliver features even faster tomorrow? And that really leads us to our final question, the one for you to think about. This whole thing isn't just about adopting a new process. It's about building a fundamentally new kind of culture and capability. It's about creating an organization that sees change not as a threat to be avoided, but as a constant, exciting stream of opportunity. So the question is, how can you start building that in your own organization today?